Carlos Vasquez was a troubled Los Angeles teenager like so many others. At 15, he dropped out of school and joined a gang, disappeared from home. His life became more and more caught up in the violence of our age, not the legalized, organized violence we call war, where certain people get rich and many people die, but the equally destructive, equally deadly nightmare of street warfare which plagues our own neighborhoods and kills just as dead. Every month in the neighborhood, two gangs would fight each other. That was the way of the streets. That is the way of the world. Their weapons were not as sophisticated as those used by the armies of the big people's world, nor were their uniforms as fancy, but they worked, and one day, inevitably, one of those kids got killed. It was not Carlos who was killed, nor was it he who did the killing, but he was there, and so he was in a way just as guilty as the killer, and in a way just as dead as the killed. Imprisoned at 15, Carlos was wild, thought only of his gang, and regularly became involved in the fights that are so common in our prison system. He was bitter, angry, untamable, unmanageable, and without hope. His life was over, and he wanted to end it. Then one day he happened to glance at an article about a man who had transformed himself, a man who loved the unloved and the unlovable, a man who had a special place in his heart for those who had done wrong, for those who were imprisoned, for those who were lost, for those like Carlos. He read that this man had called upon people to take the first steps toward those who are farthest from us, those who are forgotten, those who need understanding, consolation, and assistance. He read that this man had washed the feet of prisoners, and that he and the prisoners had wept. Now Carlos wept too. The man's name was Francis, and he lived in a place called Rome. Fascinated, the boy read article after article about this amazing man, and slowly his whole outlook changed. This was a way of thinking, a way of acting that he had never encountered before, so different from the mentality of the gangs, so different from the mentality of society. He sat in his cell, broke down, and wrote a letter to the man named Francis, not believing that anyone would ever read it, but merely wanting to put into words the deep emotions he was feeling. Over many tears, he poured out his sorrow for what he had done, for how he had lived, and he asked for forgiveness, asked for prayers, asked for Francis's blessing. He continued, if only the world were filled with more love, compassion, forgiveness, and mercy, we are able to rise again like a phoenix. I want to change my life. I want to become a leader someday and do good for the world. Thank you for your loving and merciful example to all of us. One day soon after, a letter was delivered to the prison. It began, Dear Carlos, may the peace of Jesus Christ be with you. I was pleased to receive your recent letter. The boy could not believe his eyes. Through his tears and sobs, he read on. The letter spoke of a door to mercy that was being opened to him, and said, I pray that you may receive these gifts and be filled with peace and hope. Know that the Holy Father is thinking of you and praying for you. And please remember to pray for me, because I greatly need your prayers. Sincerely in Christ, Francis. 1,000 times Carlos read those unbelievable words. 1,000 times he cried like the child he still was. Now he no longer wanted to end his life. He wanted to start living. For the first time in his young life, he wanted to start loving. For the first time in his life, he knew the meaning of hope, simply because there was someone, even someone far away, who unbelievably had not given up on him. He wrote another letter then, this time to the family of the boy who had been killed, saying how sorry he was for what he and all of them had done to cause so much hurt. I know that no words can ever give you back the life of your son, he wrote, but I hope that one day you will be able to forgive me for my part in your loss. The lesson of mercy, the lesson of forgiveness, the lesson of unbelievable love is a lesson that can be learned only by the criminal, the sinner, and which of us is not? It is a word that can be heard only by the condemned, when everything else is stripped away and only the cross remains. It is an anguished prayer cried out from the cross, and an unbelievable reply received from the cross. Remember me in your kingdom, remember me in your mercy. Today, my child, you are with me. Today and for always, you will be with me in the paradise of mercy, in my unbelievable kingdom of unbelievable love.